Good afternoon, everyone. It's David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office with another detailed update on the tropics for Thursday, August the 10th, 2023 at 2:18 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 5:18 Eastern Daylight Time. In this update, we are going to go into some very big, deep details on the tropics because there's a lot that we need to really start monitoring toward the late of August. We're seeing model guidance starting to agree with more tropical waves coming off of Africa, and these could actually develop. Not only that, we're going to be looking at the updated Atlantic hurricane season forecast numbers from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. This is pretty serious stuff, folks, and we really need to digest this through for the next 20 to 30 minutes. That's how long this video will end up probably being. So taking a look at the true color visible satellite imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. There will be a link in the description below this video leading to his website where you can view these satellite images 100% for free. So looking at the imagery right now, and we can see there is not a lot going on in the tropics for the time being, looking pretty quiet out there. And the reason why is the amount of dry air that is just dominating much of the main development region. I mean, you could see it here. You can't miss it. And it's all right in here is where all this dry air resides. It's all coming off of Africa, so the SAL, we call it the Saharan air layer, you don't need dust for a declaration of the Saharan air layer. All you need is a lot of dry air that moves off of Africa for that to be declared. And this is what we have, dry, stable nimbostratus clouds over the central and main development region of the Atlantic, illustrating that we have warm, dry air aloft above moisture, and that's just not going to allow any tropical formation. We have a temperature inversion and a dew point inversion also, kind of like an EML coming off of Africa, and that's why there's just nothing going to thrive out there. But there are changes coming, and you all need to be aware of this when we look down the road. Not tomorrow, not this weekend, probably by the middle to the end of next week, we'll have to really start watching. We do have a little bit of a tropical wave here moving into the Bahamas, bringing some inclement weather. Probably not going to develop at all just because there's a lot of shear and some dry air just kind of throughout the environment, but it's something that gets my eyes attention. But we have a lot of tropical activity, a lot of convergence, that the extension of the West African monsoon, that is where we have a lot of the deep convection. So now looking at our National Hurricane Center graphics, I always like showing this to you all. You could also find this on my Twitter page just by going to David Schlotthauer. You could find my detailed tropical weather outlooks there too. And again, those are not official from the NHC. So I want to make that clear with you all that view those. But a lot of you seem to like them very much. So based on the NHC and based on my forecast, there's nothing going on here over the next 7 days. Pretty quiet for right now. And again, I'm using for right now for a strict reason, because we're going to be looking at some model guidance here in just a second to illustrate that we're going to get into a pretty active period here in the next couple of weeks or so, probably a little sooner than that, I'm afraid. Because when we take a look at the Eastern Pacific Basin, yeah, there are 3 areas to watch, including in the Central Pacific, where we do have Dora. This is going to take some time to probably load. My internet not running very fast at all today, so we'll not be able to look at the Central Pacific, unfortunately. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they throttled my internet down, but nevertheless, we do have areas to watch in the Eastern Pacific, 3 areas. One has a 80% chance of tropical formation. When that gets done loading, we'll get back to it. But here's a look at tropical tidbits, and you can see here, this is the look at the European model for this afternoon, and we can get an idea with what we're looking at here. And I've explained this quite often. All right, our image has mysteriously loaded back, took a while, but you can see 3 areas here, 50% chance. That's the area that we're most concerned about. That could become our next tropical storm, if not a hurricane, based on the ensembles. While these 2 areas will turn harmlessly out to sea, we're not going to see any landfalls with these two systems. This one here has an 80% chance of tropical formation in the next 7 days. Now back to our European model. We're not going to look at Dora just because my internet's just not running very fast today, but it's down to a Category 3 hurricane with winds right around 115 to 120 miles an hour. So it is weakening finally as it gets in, crosses the international date line. Yeah, that came from a very long place. Once it was a tropical wave off of Africa, just did not develop here very well, and then developed right on the other side, found itself in favorable conditions. And that kind of illustrates where our favorable conditions currently are at. And right now they are in the Eastern Pacific Basin, and soon it will be the Atlantic's turn. And once that happens, boy, it's gonna probably end up being pretty ugly very quickly. So looking at the Euro, back again to this, sorry, I've just been backtracking, but you can see these yellow colors here, some oranges up here. This is vorticity, how much spin there is at the 5,000 foot level. So when you take the atmosphere, it's three-dimensional, it's not 2D. You kind of go up from the surface to the 850 millibar. That's the level of the atmosphere that we're looking at. So this is at 5,000 feet, showing us the vorticity. The wind barbs too indicate how strong the low-level winds are, and the geopotential height here is highlighted with these lines that you see, these lines of thicknesses illustrating where our high-pressure systems are, where our low-pressure systems are. So going forward in time here on the Euro, I'm not really concerned through the weekend, okay? We can get by the weekend just fine. No tropical waves to be concerned about, maybe a few weak ones, but nothing that catches my eye attention at all. Okay, by August the 14th, still looking pretty calm, very stable out there. We can see the sprawling ridge out here in the central Atlantic, keeping the waves at bay, keeping the dry air coming off of Africa in check, but the pattern is going to change. Let's go out to day 6, day 7, and day 8 here. Can see our first tropical wave here trying to wrap up pretty nicely. This ridge breaks down a little bit more because the troughs end up being more stronger up here to the north. So this ridge is able to squash a little further south. That weakens the trade winds, that weakens the Saharan dust, and that just opens the door for what is to come. Now, do I rarely go beyond 7 days? And this is why I think we have to really watch the long range. This is out to August the 20th. Yep, we have maybe a very strong tropical wave here. We have a strong tropical wave here. We might have something else coming off of Africa later on. So, yeah, there are some signs that the tropics are going to potentially wake up. And this could be very bad, folks. We're continuing with really warm sea surface temperatures, which we'll look at here in just a second. But that's a look at the Euro as far as vorticity. Here's a look at the dry air. Simple way to put it is these brown colors indicate the dry air. And, I mean, look at this. If you follow the mouse here, you know, look what I drew up. And look at the imagery. Let's go back to this. It really makes sense where all this dry air is. See? Can just see it without actually looking at relative humidity plots based on how clear it is. There's no cirrus clouds, lots of dry air in the deep layers, and that's just poison. We call it tropical weather poison or tropical storm poison for these systems. So going forward, the pattern will change eventually. We start moistening up things a little bit by days 5, going out to day 6, day 7, day 8. Yeah, look at that. Nice, good-looking tropical wave here. Really broad, really big, lots of moisture associated with it. And then down the road, we might see this whole atmosphere. We're seeing lots of less dry air pockets here, and the whole pattern seems to change. And if we look at this, you can see just how these waves don't move as fast versus what they're doing right now. See that? See the difference? How things are going to change with time by August the 19th and the 20th. And speaking of that, that's typically when we flip on the light switch. That's when things really get favorable suddenly in the Atlantic, and it really is going to make sense potentially as we go in that time frame. Looking at the wind shear now on the Euro, we have to go and look at the 12Z run because that was the 0Z from last night. We can see as we go forward, not much shear to speak of, and that's the whole impetus here. Now, very interesting, though, there is a lot of shear here coming out of the Caribbean, kind of doing this, as you all can see. But at the same time, we're not seeing shear just cutting across from the west throughout the deep tropics here of the Atlantic into the Caribbean, because the Atlantic is so much warmer than the El Nino that is taking place in the Eastern Pacific, and so it's able to fend off a lot of that shear. So we have a lot of the shear vectors that are doing this, kind of doing this. So we have anticyclonic flow around these tropical waves that are coming off of Africa, and that could, again, lead to much more favorable conditions down the road. So now, it's not just the European operational model that's indicating tropical development, but its ensembles are also indicating that. And if the trends continue here, I might have to delineate, if I can, it's a tongue twister, an highlighted area out here eventually in my tropical weather outlooks if more of these ensemble members start to agree on a system. Right now, they're kind of loosely clustered, but there is potential here down the road in the next 7 to 10 days. And when we look out to 10 days here on the ensemble forecast, yeah, there is a cluster of members here. There's a big cluster of members here, and there's another cluster of members here. So, yeah, I think we're going to flip the light switch on really soon here in the next week and a half, maybe 2 weeks or so. I give and take, plus or minus a couple of days. But either way, yeah, we're going to really have to start watching the tropics a bit more closely in the next few days. And the next few days, I'm going to use this time to release a fall forecast and a winter outlook, since some of you guys were wondering about that. So I'm going to focus on the next 2 days of releasing content, Friday and Saturday, on the for the upcoming fall and winter forecast. Well, yeah, fall and winter, that is. Okay, so when we now look at the European website here, this is what I like to look at. And yeah, that's a 60 to 70% chance of a tropical depression strike probability chance. Okay, so that's kind of what this is highlighting. So when we look at this, tropical storm probabilities, extended range forecast, and then when we look at this, the weekly mean tropical cyclone strike probability, and this is today's run showing you through the next at least 10 or so days. And yeah, look at this, folks. I mean, that's a pretty high chance likelihood that there could be a tropical depression in this area that forms all the way through. This is through the next 8 or 9 days, right? And then, of course, not much to worry about in the Gulf of Mexico or the Bahamas yet, but you never know. I mean, we're just getting started into the active part. We'll see if this moves west and impacts other areas with the potential. Tropical storm probability strikes here, right around a 10 to 20% chance on the Euro ensemble forecast. All right, that's a little worrying, okay? Looking out to 10 days, I mean, 96 hours all the way out to 264. That is just outside of the 10-day range for the operational model. And yeah, it's indicating to me there could be a 10 to 20% chance of a tropical cyclone or tropical storm striking that area. So now, going back to tropical tidbits, we're looking at the GFS model. Why I always use a GFS model for the last portion of the model forecasting group here is because it's not really reliable. It hasn't done a very good job this year, and that's why I'm being really generous. Okay, not that the Euro is aggressive, but we can see here all the way out to, 10 days, literally nothing now. While if we look at the Canadian model, look at that. You can't ignore that. 2 tropical waves coming off of Africa by days 10, and it makes sense with the Euro forecast. 2 tropical waves. Let's look at the NavGem forecast. Nothing to worry about there in the next, say, 7 days. the icon model. Let's look at that. This is, we'll look at the 12Z run. This is kind of make this go further out. Yeah, we have 2 areas to monitor eventually. Maybe a third one out here over Africa. So interesting that the 3 models, the icon, the Canadian model, are agreeing on a potential system while the GFS literally has nothing. That's why we're not going to rely on the GFS just yet, but just maybe the GFS is right the whole time. Maybe it's the conservative one. But there's a lot more than just the GFS, and it's all about agreement between models that we have to look at. All right, so let me zoom this out if y'all can see that. All right, this is the Saharan dust forecast that I always like to look at. We're just going to play this through rather briefly. You can see over the next day or so, big Saharan dust outbreak potentially likely. That's going to reinforce the dry air. But look what happens towards the end of the model run. I mean, this dust really breaks away, and you can see it. Look at that. It really just kind of fizzles out eventually, and we don't see a whole lot of dust. When there's a lot of dust, you're usually looking for bright yellows and white colors in the concentration of dust. We're not seeing that, only now, and then it really fizzles out. There's going to be some dust out there the entire peak hurricane season, but the concentrations are much lower. I mean, that's really low on the scale and really isn't enough to really dwindle any portion of the Atlantic hurricane season whatsoever. All right, so now, sea surface temperatures. All right, I am really going to make a huge disclaimer here, folks, all right? And I want to make myself very clear here, okay? My job is to not cause any fear mongering, to scare anyone, to get views, to get subs, whatever not, okay? I'm not here for that. You know me, and I try to be as generous as I can possible with my tropical weather outlooks and discussions on my YouTube channel, right? You've been following me for a while now, and you can see how conservative I am. But unfortunately, I am not going to be very conservative with the Gulf right now. These sea surface temperatures are very, very concerning. Very. And I mean, very is not used very lightly out of my mouth, okay? I take this very seriously when we see sea surface temperatures in most of the Gulf of Mexico. 31 Celsius. And I'm going to give you some comparison here in just a little bit, just showing you how much warmer the Gulf is this year versus last year. I mean, right what I'm drawing up here is all 31 Celsius waters. 31 Celsius all throughout here. Okay. 32 Celsius all in here. And I mean, that is not shelf waters. Okay. This is deep. This is, I mean, away from the shelf waters of Florida. Okay. I mean, this is really, 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 this is not good. This is absolutely terrifying to see in a meteorological scale. I mean, there's been a lot of tweets about this, that the Gulf is just sizzling. It is just, I mean, it is warm. It is bathtub. It is almost hot tub territory warm. The 30 Celsius is even right off the coast here of Texas. I mean, this is really, really concerning. I mean, the 30 Celsius was barely evident all throughout here last year. And we're seeing 2 degrees Celsius, even 3 Celsius warmer than average. I mean, I'm not trying to scare you all here. This is science. This is real stuff that we're looking at. And I mean, let's hope El Nino could really, really keep the Atlantic from being too active, because I'm telling you folks, I mean, I'm trying to be generous here, and I hate using strong wording here in my videos, but if we get a tropical wave that moves over the Gulf of Mexico, or even over the Bahamas, it is going to intensify extremely quickly, and it's not going to end very good for a lot of the big population should that system make landfall. I mean, we saw it with Harvey, Michael, Laura, I mean, Ian last year, these were very devastating hurricanes, and they intensified within the last day or so from moving onshore. My point here is these sea surface temperatures are more than suitable enough to support violent, destructive, catastrophic hurricanes if everything comes together. Okay, I want to make that clear with you all, okay? So really quickly, I wanted to compare sea surface temperatures with you all here. Now, look at the entire Atlantic here really quickly, and let's go back to Weather Bell here so you can see this closely. This is now, okay, this is as of yesterday, August the 9th. Take note how warm the Gulf of Mexico actually is right now. Let's look at last year. I mean, come on. I mean, like, what the? I mean, just much warmer. I mean, compare this last year to this year. Wow. It doesn't look as warm in the Northeast, like off the New York coast, but that doesn't matter because where these systems form is in the deep tropics. I mean, much more expansion here with the 29 Celsius ISO line that we see here. And I mean, I'm telling you folks, I mean, the Gulf right now, if we look at the Gulf of Mexico, I mean, yeah, those anomalies are 3 Celsius above normal. I mean, that is really, that gets my attention. That really does. And again, I don't say that very lightly for a specific reason, and that is if things line up, you better hope it doesn't, because if it does, these systems are going to really intensify very quickly. The Bahamas, 31, 32 Celsius plus waters. The only thing that is good news, I would say, is we're not at the 33 Celsius like we were just a couple of days ago. We've seen a little notch down with those temperatures, but still, I mean, 32 Celsius is upper 80s, like 89, 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow. That's all I gotta say. So another look at this is the ocean heat content. We're going to compare 2020. Why are we comparing that year to this year? Because that year gave us 30 plus named storms. We all remember we had very, very busy season. I mean, I thought it would never end because it was so busy. This is what it looked like then. Take note of all the red and orange colors that we had. All right. This time, 3 years ago. Okay, so we're looking 3 years into the future in our next slide here. The Gulf of Mexico, we know a lot of upper ocean heat content, but not as much as what you're about to see now. Go and move on, David. Let's take a look now at this year. Okay, remember looking at this image. Wow, I mean, little lesser upper ocean heat content up here, but still there. Big expansion over here in the eastern Atlantic, kind of in the central North Atlantic too. We've seen the expansion of that upper ocean heat content, which means Saharan dust doesn't take much of a bite out of that upper ocean heat content. But what really gets my attention, and not just me, but Pat's Path Predictor, Alec Baller on Twitter and on YouTube, brought this to my attention. And when those two bring that to my attention, including Ronald Martinez as well on Twitter, this really gets this is serious, all right? The upper ocean heat content is off the charts in the northwestern Caribbean. I mean, 175 this goes up. And me and Pat were talking about this literally a day ago. Some of these numbers in here could be at or close to 200 kilojoules per centimeter squared, which is exceptionally, extremely high. I mean, I just cannot wrap my head around just how high the upper ocean heat content is. Even in the Gulf, I mean, I'm telling you folks, if anything moves over to this area, takes full advantage of the upper ocean heat content, latent heat release, everything comes together, it's going to end very bad, very, very quickly. It's not going to end very well for the Atlantic hurricane season if everything is able to line up perfectly, which again doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, you better hope it doesn't happen this year. Okay, so enough with that, with the jibber jabber with the sea surface temperatures. David, let's move on and let's talk about Alec Baller. He's out of southern Florida, off of near Miami, actually. He's actually within walking distance from the National Hurricane Center. So, I mean, that is some cool stuff if you ask me. I mean, this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows what to look for. And yeah, he posted this from the NHC, from NOAA, and they have upped their forecast from from literally a couple of months ago. Now predicting a very busy Atlantic hurricane season. We're looking at 14 to 21 named storms. Again, that's including tropical storms, hurricane, major hurricanes, whatnot. You put everything together, this is your output. 21 named storms, and we'll explain why that is in just a second, why the NHC and NOAA are collaborating on a very busy season. 11 hurricanes. Are you kidding me? We had Dawn, so another 5 to 10 more hurricanes potentially to come. I don't know if they included that in this outlook or not, but wow. 11 hurricanes, folks. That is very, very worrying. I mean, the number of named storms is one thing, but when you factor in how many hurricanes you actually get here is very worrying. Major hurricanes, 5. So we could see Category 3, Category 4, Category 5 hurricanes this year. 2 to 5 of those are possible, okay? So just kind of illustrating, major hurricane is Category 3 or greater. In my books, a super hurricane, which I don't use very often in my outlooks, is usually Category 5, okay? Because that's literally superly strong, superly dangerous, superly catastrophic. But either way, you know the drill. Get prepared. Do not be scared. I know I got that from Ryan Hall, y'all, but this is serious, folks. You need to get ready for the season, because while it's quiet now, doesn't mean it always has to end that way. We got lucky last year, well, we got lucky until Ian happened. It only took one named storm, but you get the point, okay? We're gonna get some activity here, and it's going to get very busy in the Atlantic. Just because it's quiet now, it's also because climatology speaks for itself in that sense, and we'll look at more on that in just a second. So this is from Dr. Philip Klocksbog. Okay, most of the tropical and subtropical Atlantic remains near or at record warm values. Okay, I mean, this is from the Colorado State University meteorologist here that posts these things. I mean, this is not hype, folks. This is not like, oh man, for him to get attention. This is alarming. This really is. All right, let's click on this image. Sea surface temperatures. I mean, they have cooled off a lot up there in the northern tier or the northwestern tier of the Atlantic, but still, I mean, way down here, very warm. In the Gulf, very warm. I mean, a very classic AMO look. Wow. In despite of a incoming El Nino, I don't think it's going to be strong enough. I personally don't think it's going to knock the numbers down in the Atlantic as far as the number of named storms. We'll see about the ACE producing at the point. But, I mean, it's in front of you. You're looking at it right now. This is screaming to me that we're going to have a really busy season. And my prediction here is at least 16 to 22 named storms is what my prediction actually is. And we have already had 4. We had Dawn, which is our 4th named storm. We got Emily to go through. We got others to come up into as well. But I just wanted to shout those 2 people out. Alec from Miami, Florida, near Miami, near Delray Beach, Florida. I mean, he's on top of it. I mean, you got to follow him. There will be a link in the description below this video leading to his Twitter page where you can follow him there. He actually does make daily outlooks too. I mean, really good outlooks. I hope you're okay with me sharing this on the video. But yeah, that's his outlook's pretty good guy. I've talked to him on Discord. Really good young man that is pretty accurate, doesn't hype up very much unless it really needs to be. All right, so one last thing I did want to kind of close before closing off the video is this. I'm going to kind of roll through this very quickly in simple terms, that this right here doesn't mean there will be a hurricane this intensity. You have to put in a lot of factors, and I want to make my point clear here. You need very low shear, so shear generally under 5 or 10 knots. You need a lot of moisture, I mean deep layer moisture. You need these green colors. You need something, let me see. You need a lot of this right here, see that? To be favorable in the environment that is outlined here from this. And this is from the George Mason University. Got to figure that out where that is, but you get the idea. Okay, when things line up, let's just assume everything was perfect, right? We had no shear, we had lots of moisture, sea surface temperatures are very favorable. Let's just pretend everything is perfectly favorable right now. Everything is perfect, the Goldilocks, pristine environment. I mean, the waters, the atmosphere could support here Category 5 intensity hurricanes, especially in the Gulf of Mexico, off the charts. I mean, that would be 190 plus mile-an-hour winds in the central, northern, eastern Gulf of Mexico. That would be obliteration. That would be just full-on catastrophic. I mean, I'm not trying to hype up, but this is real. This is not good at all. This is absolutely not good when you factor in it. If you think I'm hyping this up, if you still feel that way, go watch Mark Sedith, watch other climatologists. They're going to say the same thing of what I'm saying. I mean, what I'm seeing here, I've been doing this for since Hurricane Dorian back in, or Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Irma, if you remember me from that time. I mean, I've been tracking this stuff for a while, and I have not seen anything this serious, this extreme, since I started on YouTube, and that was back in 2017. Even so, this is not this YouTube channel is less than a year old. I've had other YouTube channels in the past that go back to 2017, so I really want to make that clear with you all. I'm not doing this for views, for any hype, to get my attention, or to have everyone gravitate towards me. The science is there. Climatology is there. I really think we're in trouble. I really think we are. It doesn't have to be that way. I may be wrong this whole time, but the data adds up, and it speaks for itself when we look at busy seasons. Really quickly, I wanted to show you where we're at as far as climatology goes before I do end the video. I know it's been over 32 minutes of this video, but I wanted to show you we're located roughly right about, actually, we're right about here. Yeah, we're right about there. Technically, we haven't increased anything yet. And look at where we're at versus where we are about to go. I mean, look at that huge jump in activity, or in the amount of climatology we go through. So by late August, usually the 20th and beyond, lights on, all hands on deck. We really got to watch the Atlantic very closely as we really get into the busy part of the Atlantic, the traditional peak that is on the 10th and the 11th and the 12th of September, when we typically reach our peak of the most tropical cyclones we typically see, and we could fit a lot in there potentially this year. Boy, that was a lot to digest, folks. I told you this video was going to be fairly long because we got some new information and some very stunning data that I wanted to show you all. But it's important that we really kind of dive deep into these videos. I hate making these long, but it is necessary sometimes. But anyways, if you did like today's detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for August the 10th on this fantastic Thursday, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Share this video with your family and friends on social media, and also leave a comment in the section below. I would really like to hear your guys' thoughts of the Atlantic hurricane season. I know some of you are saying already this season's not going to be very busy, but you clearly saw the evidence that I showed you. So hopefully that changes your guys' mind quite frankly quickly, because it's coming, and it's a matter of when exactly when we see the activity. All right, but anyways, that's going to do it with this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with you more tomorrow.